Welcome to our posts. Today we will see stories of r/malicious compliance. You should fire us. Okay. My family runs a small trucking company. Depending on where you are in the world, you might call us a P&D company, a final mile company, a white glove company. Basically, we handle the kind of stuff that you might buy to have delivered to your home or business, that's too big for someone like UPS to deliver, but not big enough for a tractor trailer to haul, and are stuff that actually needs to be brought into the home and set up, like furniture, appliances, etc. A lot of what we've hauled over the years is stuff going to small stores that can't take delivery by large truck, construction sites where large trucks can't get in and out, neighborhoods and apartment complexes. We don't work for the people buying the stuff, we work for the people selling or shipping it, but as we tend to see the same business owners a lot, we've developed great relationships with them over the years. We don't get rich, but we've been pretty comfortable over the years. Our one major stressor has been a longtime shipper who has, or rather, had become increasingly demanding as time went on. Now, when I say long time, I mean it. We made our first delivery for them over 50 years ago. Our company has been doing business with them longer than any of their current employees or management staff have been there. There was one point, not too long ago, where the retired guy who came in a few hours a day to sweep our warehouse because he was bored sitting home, literally knew more about this shipper's systems than their senior field rep who was supposed to be supervising our operations. We have been a small, but vital part of their network for so long that almost no one there really realized how much we did for them. We've seen field reps come and go. Some have been great, some have been a little challenging, but most have, once they realized what was going on, largely left us alone to do our jobs. One even called when he took over our area to ask who we were, because his predecessor had no notes on us at all, because they'd never had to visit. We've just been, mostly, quietly plugging along, taking care of their customers, in some cases for generations. Well, the latest rep was a genuinely unpleasant person. He was arrogant, abrasive, casually insulted our employees. Honestly, it's not worth getting into the minutiae here. He wasn't someone we wanted to work with. But I'm able to put on a happy face and get along with about anyone, when needs must, so onward we strode. As I said earlier, the shipper had been getting more and more demanding as time went on. Systems had been getting harder to navigate, inventory had been getting harder to track, phone trees had grown into banyan nightmares, more and more layers of bureaucracy had been added, and with every change they'd grown less agile, slower, more difficult to deal with. One day the field rep called because he didn't like how we'd answered an email. Not that we hadn't answered it, just that he didn't like the manner in which it had been answered. After decades of dealing with this shipper, being micromanaged to that level was not something that we were interested in. The manager here who was dealing directly with him tried to defuse the situation, but it kept getting worse until the field rep said, "If you aren't happy with the way things are going, maybe you should just quit." Oh. Okay then. We started running the numbers, looked at all our other business, decided that we could, indeed, go on without them, and then I called the field rep to have a frank conversation with him. And then I wrote a short, polite, direct letter to our customer of over 50 years telling them that we were firing them. We didn't just pull the plug. We gave them a full 60 days notice, so they'd have time to get something worked out. And they didn't. We've always been here for them. They've never had to worry about it. They had someone they thought was going to be a replacement, but, well, as of today most of their customers in this area haven't had deliveries in a week. Some, longer than that. Many don't know when they'll get their next shipment. That field rep might still have a job when all is said and done, but it's not our problem anymore. Our phone keeps ringing, people looking for their freight from that shipper. Sorry, you'll have to call them. Next story. Yell at me for delivering. Well, time to get some exercise. Some years ago I was driving pick-ups and deliveries, P&D, for a trucking company in Denmark. P&D is the part of the transport chain where you usually deliver small quantities to multiple customers on a route, kind of like UPS or FedEx, but in semis or rigid/box trucks. It was nearing the end of the day and I had to deliver a trampoline to a residential area, mind you this in EU, so things may be a bit different than in the US regarding rules and regulations. It was a fairly new area with plenty of space, but I had to reverse in cause there was no way of turning around. But no problem, the road was wide and so were the corners I had to go around. I put my semi in reverse and started going backwards, and of course I was delivering to the last house on the street. Now the road climbed a bit and was about 6 or 700 meters long, but it all went fine. When I finally got to the end of the road and got out of my truck to unload this trampoline, some guy was already standing behind my truck and started yelling and swearing at me. I was the biggest idiot on this earth. How the hell could I even think of going in there with a semi? I could have run over all the kids in the neighborhood. No one was out. I had absolutely no valid reason for being there and could get the hell out of there right away. Instead of starting an argument with person, I calmly asked him where he lived. He pointed at the house and said number 74, and lo and behold, where was I delivering? You guessed it, number 74. So I, again very calmly, told this man. Well, in that case I have a trampoline for you. Oh, the man said, well, I would like if you could. But I interrupted, since I have no business being in here with a semi. I will be waiting for you at the end of the road, and pointed to the direction I just came from. Mind you, this is the big model weighing about 130 pounds, so you might want to bring a wheelbarrow. The joy it was seeing him coming all the way down the road with his wheelbarrow. And then trying to get this 130-pound trampoline up in the wheelbarrow and starting his long heavy walk 700 meters up to his house again. Priceless. Next story. You need to see my father in person? Zavara, the great mystic of the beyond, shall grant your request. My father died 20 years ago and left me a tiny cabin house. He loved that place, built it himself, and tended to it religiously. After he died, I couldn't find it in my heart to visit, because every rock on the wall, every flower reminded me of him. My mother never cared for it even when my dad was alive, so within a few months I realized that it would be a while before either of us would be ready to spend time there again. As such, we called up the electricity, telephone, and water companies to shut off services to the cabin until further notice. While other companies complied without an issue, the water company decided this request could be made only by the person whose name was on the bill. Mind you, their fee, due to zoning and a well on our property, was less than €2 per month. Repeatedly faxing the death certificates as well as next of kin transfer of the title got us nowhere. Dozens of calls per month, several emails, in-person applications, smoke signals, interpretive dances, telepathy, etc. Nothing made any difference. Both me and my mother were entirely flabbergasted, so we asked around and found out that indeed the process is unsolvable and, albeit not technically legal, people stopped paying those fees and the water would get shut off anyway as a result. Getting any lawyers involved would not be worth the money, so we did just that, discontinued the connected bank account, and never gave it another thought. 2 weeks ago, while at my family house, I got a call from the water company. They were closing inactive accounts at the 20-year mark, and my father's cabin was up. They did, however, tell me that 1, there was a pending sum of €11.93 to be paid for the account to be closed, and 2, the account owner themselves had to make the application to close the account. Once again I mentioned the whole he's dead spiel and was passed over to a supervisor, but in a reminiscing demonstration of absolute absent-mindedness/stupidity, the response I got was, unfortunately they have to show up in person, as we need a paper copy for accounts older than X years, otherwise we can't proceed. Now, I don't know how widely common this is, but in my country, you rent the burial site/grave in 3 to 5 year increments. My father's grave's 20 years were up in August, and my mother decided it was time to unearth his bones and surrender the site. As such, we had just been delivered a very respectful package with my father's remains, cleaned and curated, only that week. Everyone that has ever gone through this process would recognize that box for what it was. And what it was great timing. 2 days later, I went to the water company's local office. I wore my most purple, silky, goth outfit, dark makeup, and also heathen jewelry, and carried a large bag with me. I asked to speak to the same supervisor, who luckily for me was in an open space area with their team's director and quite a few more desks. After confirming with her why I was there, she started telling me the whole "he needs to be here in person" thing again, but I interrupted her and told her, I know what you will say, so I brought him with me so he can tell you himself. I plopped a Ouija board and the box with my father's remains on the desk, and loudly shushed the area. Heads turned, her director looked up with a what the F expression, and the supervisor herself was frozen and wide-eyed. I placed my hands on the Ouija board and just as loudly started asking my father's spirit to communicate with me, show me a sign he was there with us, reach out to me from the grave. Everyone was silent, people walking by the door stopped and stared, I threw a few "Papa, can you hear me" in there as well, for dramatic effect. In comedic timing that happens only once in a lifetime, I think a pen/something small fell down from someone's desk behind me, which against the silence was quite startling. Excitedly, I moved my hand to yes and proclaimed I needed his help in the form of his signature from the beyond, in order to close this account. Finally, the director snapped out of it and came over with an "Alright, I can help you over here, I think this is enough," but hell no, it wasn't. I started gathering my things as I laid into him how asking to speak in person with an indisputably dead man of over 20 years was beyond stupid, and if I had to put up with their idiocy, they had to put up with the process required to get a hold of him. I also mentioned that denying someone's legal title claim was lawsuit worthy, so he immediately changed his tune that I could of course close the account. He tried to bring up the fee, but I cut him off with a "don't even think about it" and walked out. It's still early, but so far, there has been radio silence. My mother thanked me for handling it, but when I suggested she should write to someone higher up about this, she just said, "Meh, not worth it, it's over now." What a missed opportunity for a water under the bridge comment. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel or posts.